Today on Xtreme 4x4, a serious lift kit for serious off-roading. Ian and Jesse not only build up this new Ford Super Duty, but give it a real-world off-road test. Plus, everyone wants to be king of the hill at Gravelrama. We'll take you there.
Welcome to your Xtreme 4x4. Now imagine the owner of Fabtech Suspensions gives you a call and says, hey, we just developed a new suspension for Ford Super Duties. And he shows up in this thing. What the heck am I gonna do with an 18-wheeler?
And inside that 18-wheeler, he puts a brand new 2005 Ford Super Duty and their new 8-inch radius arm lift, then says you can test it out. How would you test it?
I thought so, but wait. Let's go back and see how we got this far.
There it is, brand new 2005 Ford Super Duty. We're gonna put on Fabtech's new 8-inch radius arm lift kit. This is part of an upgradable lift kit program that's gonna let you add what you want when you want it. You can start with a 2-inch lift kit and work your way all the way up to this, the biggest coilover around, 4 inches, available in their 6 or 8-inch lift kit. You can even get a 4-link to go with this thing. You know you've got a serious lift kit when you're running a 4-inch coilover. This is what we're going to install on our Ford, the first step for the serious off-roader. Fabtech's radius arm 8-inch coil lift with dual shock option. You can run this setup with either a 6-inch coil, an 8-inch coil, or even that monster 4-inch coilover if you choose to later. I told you the kit was upgradable.
Fabtech is known for their off-road racing heritage. They're still out there competing for R&D and for product design. We're gonna swap out the original coils, the radius arm, the pitman arm, and we're gonna lower the track bar. And during this entire process, we're only gonna have to drill a couple holes.
That front looks pretty easy. You think you can handle it by yourself?
But I could do it faster than you can.
You want to bet?
Bet what?
I'll bet you 1 dozen donuts.
It's on.
Let's go.
I'm done.
No, you're not. Spring out.
Yes.
Disconnect the drag link from the frame and get rid of the stock sway bar links.
Disconnect the ABS wires from the radius arms and yank them out.
While Jesse takes out the other trailing arm, we'll prep this one to go in. One trick feature of this is Fabtech includes an eccentric on the bottom mount. This is something the factory arm doesn't even have. You can tell that this is meant to go off-road. It's 1.5 inch drawn over mandrel tubing, and best of all, it mounts in the factory location. Once you lubricate the rear radius arm bushing, install the axle side and swing the rear mount into place. Now we'll install the bump stop lowering bracket, the brake line relocator, and then we're ready for coils and shocks.
And we mean shocks. You saw that super trick dual display that we had earlier? Well, this is our setup. Fabtech is one of the only suspension companies that builds their shocks in-house, allowing them to have tight control over their end product after extensive testing, of course. Now, this dual hoop setup will allow us to run their Dirt Logic 2 1/4 shocks. Of course, they build them themselves. Now, if you're having troubles depicting the size, this is an original shock valve, OEM standard. This is the Dirt Logic shock valve. And this is their massive 4-inch valve. Pretty big difference, huh? The bracket bolts to the frame. With the hoop in place, drill 1 hole for the lower mount, then install the front bolt. Install the top shock mount, followed by the 8-inch coil springs. We opted for these machine billet aluminum reservoir clamps to hold in our 2 1/4 shocks.
While Jesse buttons up those shocks and coils, I thought I'd point out the minimal amount of bracketry in this kit. We have a drop track bar bracket, a new pitman arm, a steering stabilizer bracket, and new bump stop mounts. The best thing is if you upgrade to that monster 4-inch coilover, that bracketry's not going to move. The new sway bar end links are trick pieces with Heim joints in either end. Now you may expect to have those on the front of the axle, but this kit moves the sway bar to the back. We opted for a dual steering stabilizer on the front, and while Jesse mounts this one up into place, I'm going to finish off the sway bar on the back of the axle. The bottom of the link bolts to the shock mount, and the top attaches to the sway bar.
Later on Xtreme 4x4, Ian and Jesse take the Fabtech Ford off-road for a no-holds-barred payoff. But up next, gravel meets horsepower at this one-of-a-kind hill climb. The Xtreme 4x4 Event of the Week is brought to you by Warren, #1 in winches.
Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4. Right now we're in the middle of our fabulous Fabtech Ford build-up, and Ian's bringing in one of our next projects.
Here's the Project Ranger, Jesse.
Not another new truck. You know, when I signed on to this gig, I thought we were gonna have a challenge.
Oh, no, not this Ranger, that Ranger.
That's what I'm talking about. Now that's a challenge. We're gonna be taking that and turning it into this Ranger Off-Road Bandit. Now speaking of challenge, have you ever seen a bunch of guys get together and try and climb up a hill of pea gravel? Check this out. For the last 34 years, thousands of racers have come to Cleves, Ohio to conquer the Big Eliminator Hill.
Yeah, the Big Eliminator Hill, that's what it's all about.
7 stories of pea gravel stacked as high as they can stack it. Best man over wins.
Bottom line, it's the most unique 4x4 event in the Midwest. On rock and roll.
It's awesome. That's the only thing I can tell you.
It's a rush. We do four-wheeling, rock crawling and stuff like that. Nothing's near as much of a rush as what this is.
Hill climbs are common. Climbing a hill of pea gravel is not.
The reason we run on the pea gravel is because 35 years ago the pea gravel was here.
It's more like marbles than sand. We race mostly in sand at home. And dirt tracks, this is the slickest track we come to.
You can't even crawl up it probably on your hands and knees, and these cars have to try and go over it.
Almost 300 drivers competed in 16 classes for nothing more than a trophy and bragging rights.
For people to spend this kind of money on their race cars to come down to a place like this and race strictly for a trophy, I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore.
It's just prestige coming out here and racing.
You can't explain the feeling of going over that hill and all that power.
It's all about having fun. This is our fun. It's the neatest thing in the world.
It's unbelievable. 35 years ago, there was one Jeep. The hill was not near as big as it is. There was one Jeep that made it over the hill. And for years, he was the only guy that made it over here. Now, it's almost impossible to stop these bigger cars from going over the hill.
Every type of vehicle is welcome at Gravelrama. Some, though, aren't built to get over the top.
Basically a golf cart drivetrain. And buddy ours built it.
Steer from up here. We get pedals down below, the gas and brake. And like I said, you drive it like a golf cart. Push it to go and push the brake to stop.
However, if you want to win your class, the man to see is John Dreer.
I would say we've taken first place at least 20 times easy. Last year alone, we won 4 first places out of the X classes in just 1 year.
This year, he had 6 machines competing.
We normally run small block Chevys in the cars that we build, the biggest part of the ones that I have out here. The cars rate anywhere from probably 700 to 1,000 horsepower. Most of the ones that we're doing run no nitrous at all. They're just high horsepower small block. On the Big Eliminator Hill, they'll only run in 1 gear, low gear to run the hill. You got to have a tremendous amount of tire speed. We run a chain drive system to the front. There is no transfer case in them. The cars are fairly light. They run 22 to 2,400 pounds mostly.
At a 75-degree angle, the Eliminator Hill is steep, very steep.
If I was just building cars for drag racing, it would be a little different. But the hill, you have to have 8 to 10 inches of ground clearance to peak the top, or else you'll drag so bad you'll get stuck on the top of it.
And they've got to be able to handle the pea gravel.
Build the frames where they're rigid because the cars are 4-link suspension in the front and rear to make them hook up harder, and on a loose surface they work good like that.
With 4 of his machines getting over and 2 winning their classes, his legendary status stayed intact.
There's hours and hours building the car, but in the end, that's one of the great rewards of it, is just seeing the other cars that I built go over the hill too. I mean, it's probably the greatest thing for me that it could be.
For the 75% who didn't make it to the top, none were willing to throw away their dream of cresting four-wheeling's toughest challenge.
It's always next year.
Hey, Jesse, enough TV. Come on, we got a Ford to finish.
Guess that's enough of Gravelrama, but stay in tune because once we get this rear end done, we're taking this bad boy out to Wheelin in the country. All right, we're back with our 2005 Ford Super Duty build-up. We've already got the radius arm kit in the front from Fabtech. Now we just got to put in the rear end, which includes 2 arc leaf springs, another set of their Dirt Logic shocks, and a shim kit for the carrier bearing, which we'll tell you about later. Now all we got to do is bolt all this stuff in.
The springs attach in the factory location.
The new U-bolts secure the spring to the axle.
And the 2 Dirt Logic shocks are installed. The last thing we'll put on this lift kit is a shim pack that Fabtech includes with the kit. As you can see, it comes with all different thicknesses of shims, and it goes right above your carrier bearing to keep your drive shaft in line. Now, after you put this in, if you notice some vibration, you can take out a single or a multiple shim until that vibration goes away. After we get that bolted up and the truck's back down at ride height, we're going to install these traction bars from the axle to the frame to help out with wheel hop when we're working the Ford. Now, before you finish this up, it's a good idea to go over all the bolts and all the fittings, make sure they're tight. Yes, Jesse?
I'm going to go pick up the wheels and tires since all this is pretty much done.
Okay, I'll be here.
Cool.
And you're going to want to go back over them in 500 miles and probably at your first oil change just to tighten it all up.
For our Super Duty, we chose American Racing 18-inch Mojave rims. They're one-piece polished aluminum alloys. And on them, we mounted Toyo Open Country AT tires. Deliver good off-road traction and don't limit on-road capabilities.
Thanks, kid.
Oh,
it's heavy.
With the truck back on the ground at ride height, we're going to slip in this super cool traction bar from Fabtech. It's a full floating bar, and by that it means that it has a swing shackle on this front bracket. It's going to allow the axle to move through its entire movement. While Jesse was out getting the tires, I put the bracket on the axle and the bracket on the frame. The cool feature is it's drilled to match that front radius arm, so it gives it a pretty neat look.
Next, it's off to the country, where Ian and Jesse put this lifted Super Duty to the test when Xtreme 4x4 continues. For more information on today's show, go online, Xtreme4x4TV.com.
Since Fabtech's suspension is the first one available for the new Ford Super Duties, we were dying to see how much better it would make our F-250 in the dirt.
So we headed to Summertown, Tennessee, and a little place called Wheelin in the country.
Hey, how are y'all?
I'm good, I'm Ian Johnson.
I'm Darren Buchanan.
Darren, this is Jesse Combs.
Hi, Darren.
This is Wheelin in the country. You want to go off-roading today?
Well, they left the keys in this truck and left it at the shop, so we gotta do something with it.
So you're gonna go get on some rocks with it? See what it'll do.
The 8-inch radius arm suspension turned our 1-ton Ford into an off-roader without compromising comfort.
We really liked the way it hooked our power stroke up, especially in the rough.
Some lifts can make a truck's front end feel light on steep approaches, but the adjustable radius arms in the Fabtech system add stiffness and strength to the entire front suspension.
Thanks to those big reinforced arms, our project truck feels planted on the inclines, the declines, and everything in between. While this truck is certainly no rock crawler, we had to give it a try over the stones.
After all, more clearance is why it's lifted 8 inches and rolling on 37-inch Toyos to begin with.
Driver.
More clearance and more suspension travel is what this is all about. The replacement leaf springs accomplish the lift in the rear, and the floating shackle-mounted traction bars reduce binding. They also allow the rear axle to travel in an arcing motion unique to the F-250. The result? Reduced axle wrap and increased traction. The external reservoir shocks at each wheel dramatically increase dampening capacity, and the dual steering stabilizers cut down wheel kick.
We put those theories to the test. You can't test a lifted truck without getting a little air. Now, you wouldn't want to do this to a stock suspended truck, but this one ain't stock.
This suspension is amazing. That thing landed like a cloud of pillows. It's hard to believe this is like a 1-ton truck. It's unstoppable. Woo-hoo!
Hey guys, Jesse here. Just giving you a heads up on what we have planned for you on Xtreme 4x4. Xtreme off-roaders trailer their rigs from all over the U.S. in order to land in the Southern California desert. The event? Fun in the desert. And the trails? Well, they call them the hammers, for obvious reasons. These are some of the toughest trails in the country, and the Victor Valley four-wheelers know how to tackle them. Some, however, don't get too far.
Whoa!
We hook up with the father of monster trucks, Bob Chandler, to see how far this American phenomenon has come. We dip into the Power Block archives for rare footage of the man and machine that started it all. Plus, see how far motorsports technology of today is applied to these beasts of the Midway. Next week, Pigs on Wheels is the joke at the toughest mud track anywhere, Muddy Run Raceway in Pennsylvania. To say these rigs are down and dirty is an understatement. Dive into this pig pen with us and see what it takes to take home the trophy. On the home front, we've taken delivery on an alloy tub and custom frame that we hope to turn into the ultimate aluminum Jeep. We're talking high pinion 9-inch front, rock jock 60 for the rear, 383 fuel injected small block, and all the goodies. Don't miss part 1 of Project AJ.